But joining us right now to talk about the Commanders, beat reporter for the Washington Post, Sam Fortier. And Sam, most people really love this deal. It's hard finding negatives on the deal for Deebo Samuel. Give us your take on this trade.
I think it's a great deal as well. I think he does a lot of things that they didn't have last year that elevate their offense, particularly on those underneath routes with yards after the catch. I do think there is some risk because, the 29-year-old plays a really punishing physical style. He dealt with, a lot of nagging injuries last year. He's only missed 9 total games in the last 4 years. But anytime you play like he plays, you just have to expect, he could miss some time. And also, there have been several instances over the last couple of years of either Deebo saying he's played out of shape or beat reporters saying he's played out of shape. Last year, which was his worst year since his rookie year in 2019, a longtime Bay Area columnist said that he was told that Deebo played 20 pounds overweight. So anytime you hear that, you think to yourself, okay, there's some risk with this guy. I think it's a good move. Adam Peters knows him really well. I think it's worth the risk, but I do think we have to acknowledge there is some risk here.
When did Deebo say he was out of shape himself? I hadn't heard that.
Yeah, Deebo said after the 2022 season, he was like, I was awful. It was a year after his All-Pro year. He was like, I was awful because I was out of shape. I was too heavy. I was sluggish.
So there is risk, but he's on the last year of his deal. And look, if he wants to get a big, fat payday, whether it's from the Commanders or another team after his deal expires, he knows that he has to come here and put up good numbers and play in 15-plus games and show everybody that last year was an aberration because of the pneumonia and the end of the oblique injury that kind of robbed him of some of his explosiveness. So, I don't think there's that much risk. If it blows up in your face, you only gave up a 5th-round pick to acquire it.
Yeah, like I said, I think it's totally worth it. And like you said, I think he's going to be a really good option for this offense. I think last year there wasn't a guy, Eckler sometimes, there wasn't a guy who could be a quote-unquote easy answer for Jaden over the middle of the field, or a guy that could turn short passes into long gains. Cliff, I think, there was a lot of pressure on Cliff and Jaden to be perfect, but I think Deebo kind of is a guy that can fix problems and say, hey, you don't have the perfect play called, or, the coverage is difficult. If you give me the ball, I can break some tackles and make something happen. So I think he was totally worth the risk for sure.
What do you think becomes of the trio of free agent wideouts that played pretty well last year? De'Ami Brown, Noah Brown, and Zaccheaus. What do you think happens there? Any of those guys get retained? I would think the favorite to get retained there is De'Ami Brown, since he was drafted by this team, even though by a different regime. I just feel like Noah Brown and Zaccheaus are guys who are probably going to walk.
I actually feel a little differently. I think that De'Ami Brown definitely showed a lot last year, especially toward the playoffs. He became more professional, more consistent. I really like what Zaccheaus did. I think that they liked him a lot. He was very consistent. Obviously not the most productive guy, but I think he displayed a lot of what they want. I remember that fumble recovery against Cleveland where he's making that fumble recovery 40 yards downfield because he's playing hard. But I'm curious to see what his market is like. You're probably not going to get in a bidding war with him, and if another team values that and wants to bring him in, then maybe you don't get him back. But I think De'Ami, he still was a little bit inconsistent, and I think that they still clearly need a legitimate number 2 receiver opposite Terry. I don't think of Deebo, and this is not a shot at him, I don't think of him as a quote-unquote number 2 receiver because, I think you need another guy who can run out of static. You want someone who can line up on the outside and win by route running, create separation. And Deebo, while he's a great weapon, I don't think that's him. And so I think you need, whether it's Darius Slayton or another one of these guys, I suggested on Twitter yesterday, and some people did not like it. I think if Devontae Adams, if they release him, I think you check into it. I'm not saying, you pay him a lot of money or give him multiple years or anything, but I think you need a traditional quote unquote number 2 receiver opposite Terry still.